Hey, what's up, guys and gals? My name is Rick9G. Thank you so much for joining me today. We're going to be talking about the Twilight Zone. If you're a fan of classic TV shows and movies, then this is the channel for you. Rick9G shows you all you ever wanted to know about classic TV shows and movies. And today, we'll be talking about the Twilight Zone episode called The Shelter. Now, this aired September of 1961. It was episode 3 from season 3. It was a really interesting one that many people really remember because of the unique plot and how in your face it was and how interesting it was. And you'd think it was going to go one way or another, but I'll tell you a little bit about it. There's a doctor, his name is Dr. Stockton, and he has prepared very well for pretty much anything that can happen in the coming world, in this uncertain world. Now, he built a bomb shelter for himself, his wife, and his child. Now, his neighbors have done really nothing to prepare. Now, while they're having dinner, there's an emergency announcement on the radio that UFOs have been sighted en route to the United States and they may be under attack. So Dr. Stockton and his family prepare to use their shelter, but their neighbors panic and ask him to let them go inside the shelter with them. Now, he refuses this because his shelter is simply too small to accommodate them. It's just for essentially 3 people, and all these families want to join in to save themselves. And it's a really interesting idea. There's a lot of concepts about, who your neighbors really are, who you are, and the reality of saving yourself, how we become essentially animals in the times of desperation, survival of the fittest. Only self-preservation, all these themes really come up, and it's really interesting in how people change just literally in the drop of a hat. Many things are interesting, as I mentioned, about this episode, but I want to really focus on 2 main things. One is an unnamed neighbor is in fact the last person, the last neighbor to join the assault on that bomb shelter. Now, if you look closely at his hands, I'll mark it for you. He's carrying a small rectangular palm-sized device. It only fits in the size of his hand. Now, this is a first-generation transistor radio that came on the market about 4 years, essentially before this episode came to light. People who were sports fans really loved these little radios because they were small, they could easily carry them, and they could take them to stadiums, and teenagers really liked them as well. And it was something that was popular at the time. Many people may think, what was it? It's a little mystery item. Maybe even people may mistake it for like a cell phone or something. Obviously, I know there were no cell phones at that time, but sometimes you get people who have conspiracy theories that may say, oh my goodness, is this proof of time travel? They had like a future device here and so forth. By the way, if you think that's strange, there is the Chaplin film, The Circus, in which there's a person who walks by essentially in some behind-the-scenes footage with what looks like a cell phone, and they're talking to it on the phone, and there's debate about what it really is and so forth. So I thought that many people would want to know what that item is. And also, there's a mysterious voice at the end.
Have now been definitely ascertained as being satellites.
Essentially, when they're all panicking and they all want to destroy each other, they destroy the shelter, all this stuff, they get final word. I mean, timing was really off on this, but they get final word on the radio of a voice telling them and announcing that the scare was no big deal at all. It was simply just satellites and no real UFOs. I mean, a little anticlimactic, but it causes the characters to change back to their normal selves again. What do we say? This is the fakeness of an individual, the fakeness that people put to kind of play the part to someone else. I don't know. It's very interesting, very intriguing. But who is that voice? Well, it's a very famous actor. You may or may not know him. His name is James Coburn. Now, James Coburn was a very unique voiced man. Like, his voice was, I mean, when you heard it, you know who it was. He was in many famous films. I think I most remember him from The Great Escape, but he was also in Charade, The Magnificent Seven, Cross of Iron, and many other films, over 180 different films, and appearing in even video games and movies, and so many different credits to his name. And yeah, he's that mysterious voice because it's kind of hard to pinpoint, but remember, he was well known at the time, and of course he was well known to Rod Serling, who did use him in an episode, The Old Man in the Cave and so forth. And so yes, if you are interested in watching this, let me know because I want to know your thoughts about it. But if you've already seen it, if you've already have ideas or thoughts on this episode, let me know in the comments below what you think about it, what your thoughts are. If you ever paid attention to that little device that was being carried in, or if you knew who that voice was at the end, because these are the things that I like to talk about. Small little details, small little tidbits that make these episodes and shows come alive, adds a little bit more depth, more interest to them, and I hope that you do enjoy this. We'll see you next time, and don't forget, everyone, to stay positive and, most importantly, be hopeful. Thank you so much to my Patreon supporters, especially my Diamond tier patrons: David D, Jerry D, Citizen Kane 359, Kevin K, Russ C, Sally N, and Vito L. If you want to be on this patron list, make sure to check out the links in the description below. Thanks so much.